Nick used to be my best friend. Before he passed away from a heroin overdose in 2013, he was that guy who lived for Halloween. Every year his place turned into something straight out of a horror movie. His parents would always fly out to New York for their own parties, which meant we had the entire house to ourselves. Nick went all out. I'm talking fog machines, blood-covered mannequins, strobe lights flashing in every corner, the kind of stuff that made your skin crawl just walking in. He even built these fake walls out of cardboard, covered them with old wallpaper, and turned the whole living room into this creepy little haunted maze. It was insane and so perfectly Nick. I'm gonna keep this story PG-13, so I'll skip the parts about the weed, the beer, the acid, and all the other dumb stuff we used to do. Let's just say no one there was sober and things got real bad, real fast. We were upstairs in Nick's room, Nick and a few of our buddies, Vinny, G, Joey, and Q, just hanging out laughing about something stupid when it happened. Two loud, heavy bangs echoed from downstairs. At first we thought someone just slammed a door or knocked something over in the maze, but then we heard screaming. Not playful screams, real ones. Terrified, panicked, both guys and girls. Nick shot up, his eyes wide, panic cutting through his hide. He rushed to the door, tripping over a beanbag as he fumbled to open it. The screams got louder, and that's when everything changed. It sounded like pure chaos downstairs. Not just one person screaming, but a whole crowd, like something out of a nightmare. Even through the haze of whatever we'd taken that night, we knew this was serious. We yelled for Nick to come back, to shut the door, to lock it, and he did, bursting into the room, eyes wide, face pale, like he'd just seen someone die. "Hide," he said, and that was it. No explanation. Joey went into the closet with Nick, Q and I dove under the bed, and Vinny G squeezed into the storage chest by the wall. The room went silent, except for our shallow breathing. Then the music downstairs cut out mid-beat, replaced by a deep, furious man's scream. "Everyone shut up!" A girl screamed next, terrified, then a loud bang echoed through the house. Silence followed for a moment, but we could hear other voices shouting. Two men arguing, angry, shouting at everyone. At least 3 intruders were in the house now, maybe more. Every creak of the floor, every muffled shout, every whisper made my chest tighten. We didn't know who would live, who would die, or if anyone downstairs had made it. It felt like the nightmare was real, and we were trapped inside it. We heard the sound of heavy boots stomping up the stairs, each step louder than the last. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. The steps stopped right outside the bedroom door. The handle rattled once, twice, and then the intruder started slamming his shoulder into it over and over again. Each hit made the door shake, the wood groaning like it was about to split. Then came the sharp cracks of gunfire, 3, maybe 4 shots, tearing through the door handle. The lock gave out, and the door swung open with a long, slow creak that made every muscle in my body lock up. I covered my mouth, trying not to breathe too loud, my whole body trembling under the bed. Through the thin fabric hanging from the frame, I saw black boots step into the room, ripped denim brushing the floor. He moved straight to the closet. I could hear Nick inside, his voice shaking as he begged the intruder not to kill him, promising money, anything if he would just leave. Nick said he was the owner of the house. He gave himself up to protect us. The man ordered him downstairs, and the sound of their footsteps faded away. Somehow, Joey hadn't been caught. He must have stayed hidden deeper in the closet. The rest of us stayed frozen in place, too scared to move, every second stretching longer than the last. Downstairs, we could barely hear the muffled voices, Nick talking to them, their low, threatening tones. Nick talked, then silence again. Time didn't feel real anymore. It might have been 10 minutes or 20 before we finally heard the front door slam. Then footsteps raced back up the stairs, and Nick burst into the room out of breath, his face pale. "They're gone," he said, his voice shaking. But looking at his face, I knew whatever he saw down there would haunt him forever. I'll never forget the moment I walked back downstairs. My legs felt weak, my chest tight, like my body already knew what I was about to see. The music was gone, the lights still flashing, and the smell of smoke and blood hung in the air. Then I saw them, Jen and Robbie, two of my closest friends, lying motionless on the floor. Blood pooled beneath their heads, dark and spreading across the wood. I froze. My mind couldn't process it. These were people I'd laughed with just hours earlier. I'll spare you the worst details, but what I saw that night never left me. When the cops finally arrived, the whole place reeked of weed and cheap booze, but they didn't care about that. Their only focus was on who those masked men were, the ones who stormed in and turned a Halloween party into a massacre. Nick told us later there were 4 of them in total, all dressed alike, feathers, long coats, gloves, and those creepy white V for Vendetta masks. They looked more like something out of a twisted movie than real people. They demanded $100 grand in cash, screaming at Nick to hand it over. But of course he didn't have that kind of money. When he couldn't give them what they wanted, they made him fill their empty bag with whatever he valued most. Phones, jewelry, watches, anything that looked expensive. Everyone at the party was forced to empty their wallets into that same sack, their hands shaking while those masked men pointed guns and shouted. It didn't feel real, but the blood on the floor said otherwise. After that night, nothing was the same for Nick. He was haunted, broken in ways I couldn't fix. He sank into a dark hole, drinking too much, becoming someone even his closest friends barely recognized. School didn't matter anymore, and eventually he dropped out completely. The drugs got heavier, meth, heroin, and it felt like each hit was a desperate attempt to numb the pain he carried every single day. I remember one afternoon we talked, just the two of us, and for the first time since the party, he was real. No masks, no bravado, just Nick, raw and hurting. Tears ran down his cheeks as he held a pipe in his shaking hand, and he admitted something that cut me to the core. He lived in constant guilt, convinced he had caused the deaths of Jen and Robbie. That burden never let him rest. By July of 2013, less than a year after that Halloween, Nick died of a heroin overdose. A life lost too soon, a story marked forever by that night's terror, and a reminder that the shadows of fear and guilt don't always fade. They can destroy everything in their path. It was my very first Halloween living on my own, away from my parents. I had this small corner house, 1 floor, a little basement, and just enough space to feel independent, you know? My parents helped me pay for half of it, so it felt like a real fresh start. That night, around 11 p.m., I was curled up on the couch watching some old Halloween horror movies, the kind that are spooky but fun when you've got the lights low and the wind howling outside. I remember feeling cozy, safe. Then suddenly there was a knock at the door. I froze for a second. Who could possibly be knocking this late? Trick-or-treaters were long gone by that hour. My first thought was that it had to be some late-night Halloween prank. Maybe a couple of kids doing a ding-dong ditch. I hesitated, then peeked through the window toward the porch. No one. They were already gone. Figures, I muttered, shaking my head with a small laugh, but before I could even sit back down, there it was again, knocking. Louder this time. Annoyed, I shouted, "Get lost!" But whoever it was didn't stop. The knocking turned into pounding, heavy, impatient. Now I was mad. I jumped up, stormed to the door, and yanked it open. Nothing. The porch was empty again. Heart pounding, I slipped on my shoes and stepped outside, scanning the yard, the bushes, behind my car, even across the street. Nobody. Just the sound of wind and the faint rustle of leaves swirling across the pavement. I was done playing their little game. Whoever was out there, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted the noise to stop. I went back inside, slammed the door, double-locked it, and headed straight to my bedroom. I even locked that door, just to feel a little safer. But even over the sound of the TV, I could still hear it. The pounding, relentless, over and over again. My patience was gone and my nerves were on edge. I actually thought about calling the cops, but the idea of having my house egged or my yard covered in toilet paper stopped me. I figured they'd get bored eventually. But they didn't. The pounding went on for what felt like forever, 30 minutes, maybe more. I remember thinking, these kids must be filming some dumb YouTube prank. I refused to give them the reaction they wanted, so I stayed quiet, pretending not to care. At some point, exhaustion took over, and I must have dozed off with the TV still flickering in the dark. When I woke up, everything was quiet, until I heard it again. Knock, knock. I blinked, disoriented, then looked at the clock. 2:00, Aim? There's no way they were still out there, right? Then it hit me. The sound wasn't coming from the front door this time. It was coming from inside. From my bedroom door. My whole body froze. For a second I couldn't breathe. Then the doorknob rattled. Slowly at first, then violently, like someone was trying to break in. I jumped up, my heart slamming against my ribs, eyes darting around for anything I could use as a weapon. That's when I realized this wasn't some prank. Whoever or whatever was on the other side of that door wasn't a bunch of kids anymore. By some miracle I got an idea. A long shot, but it was the only move I had. I flipped on the receiver to my speaker system, plugged in my phone, opened YouTube, and typed .45 caliber gunshot sound effect. My hands were shaking as I turned the volume up and hit play. The first shot thundered through the room, loud and raw, like it was right outside. I paused, took a breath, and shouted at the door. That was a warning shot. Leave now, or I won't hesitate to shoot you in the head. The house went dead silent, and it actually worked. I heard the sound of footsteps rushing across my wooden floors, fast and heavy, until the front door slammed open. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I waited a few seconds, gripping the handle of my bedroom door before slowly cracking it open. The hallway was empty, but the front door was wide open, swinging slightly in the wind. They were gone. I slammed it shut, locked it, and immediately called the police. By the time they arrived, whoever or whatever had been in my house was long gone. And that's where my story ends, but every Halloween night since, I still hear that knocking in my head. I've never really been that into Halloween. Growing up, I didn't have many friends, so after I turned 10, I couldn't exactly use the going with my mom excuse anymore. And honestly, it's not like I had anyone to go with anyway. This past Halloween, I was 14. My little sister's 8, so my mom took her out trick-or-treating. My best friend Steve already had plans, and I didn't want to intrude, so I figured I'd be spending the night at home. When my mom asked me to stay and hand out candy, I was actually kind of happy. It made me feel like I had a purpose, like I was doing something that mattered, instead of being the weird kid walking around alone. She left around 6 and said they'd be back by 9. I got cozy on the couch, watching AMC's Scary Movie Marathon and handing out candy every now and then. That's when the kitchen phone rang so loud it made me jump. I picked it up, but there was only silence, just some faint shuffling, like someone was holding the phone but not speaking. I said hello a few times, but whoever it was hung up. I tried to brush it off as some Halloween prank call, but when it rang again a few minutes later, with the same unknown number on the caller ID, and I picked up, all I heard was breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing. I laughed nervously and said, "All right, Steve, I know it's you." Click. The line went dead again. I didn't want to admit I was scared, but my stomach was tight and the house suddenly felt a lot quieter than before. It was a long time before the phone rang again. Night had fallen, and even the doorbell had finally quieted. I was half watching Friday the 13th when that awful ringing cut through the room once more, and my stomach dropped. I thought I knew who might be calling, but something felt wrong. I picked up. Nothing at first, just slow breathing and muffled fumbling, like someone playing with the line. After nearly 30 seconds, a low, exaggerated voice hissed, "I'll be paying you a visit tonight." I snapped, told them to get lost, hung up, and promised myself I wouldn't answer again. About half an hour later, out of nowhere, the power went out. Everything. The lights, the TV, the soft hum of the house, gone. I was standing there in total darkness, frozen, when the pounding started again, this time harder and angrier than before. My heart nearly exploded out of my chest as I screamed, but then laughter. Faint at first, then louder. I knew that laugh. I swung the door open, and there he was, Steven, grinning like an idiot. Furious, I shoved him down the steps. "So that was you making those creepy phone calls?" I snapped. He nodded between laughs. "Didn't sound like you," I said. "Do that voice again." He looked confused. "What voice?" "I didn't say anything, dude. I just breathed into the phone." At first I thought he was just messing with me, but then my stomach dropped. I told him to come with me to check the fuse box, and sure enough, it was wide open. Every single wire had been cut clean through. My hands started shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. We sprinted back inside, probably faster than Olympic runners, slamming the door behind us. I called my mom right away, my voice trembling. She told us to lock everything and wait for the police. When they traced the call, it came from a payphone outside a nearby bar, but no one was there when they checked. Even now, I still think about that night and get chills. Was it just some twisted Halloween prank that went way too far, or did we narrowly escape something much darker? A break-in? Something worse? I'll never really know, and honestly, I don't want to. Every Halloween since then, I double-check the locks, keep the lights on, and try not to think about that laughter in the dark. Some things, you're just better off never finding out. When I was a kid, my friends and I went trick-or-treating every single Halloween. It was our favorite night of the year, candy, costumes, and that spooky, exciting energy in the air. But one Halloween stands out for all the wrong reasons. As we were walking down the street, we passed this man, just standing there, completely still, wearing a mask and holding a lantern. At first we laughed it off, but when we walked by, he slowly turned his whole body toward us, his eyes following every step we took. It sent chills down my spine. We tried to ignore him and keep going, but as we hit each new house, there he was again, somehow always ahead of us. No matter how slow we walked, he kept up. Finally, when we thought we lost him, we turned around after getting candy, and he was standing right in the middle of the road, just waiting. Panicking, we ran back to the door and begged the homeowners to help. The masked man kept walking down the street, and for the rest of the night, we didn't see him again. At first, we tried to shake it off, laughing nervously like it was just some guy trying to scare kids for fun. but deep down none of us felt right about it. The image of that mask glowing faintly under the streetlights stayed burned into my mind. The way he stood so still, the way he followed us from house to house. It didn't feel like a prank, it felt like he was waiting for something. Later that night, when we were back home sorting through our candy, my mom got a call from a friend of the family who lived just a few streets over. He said he'd seen a man wearing a mask hiding behind a tree near the park. The creepiest part? He was waving little kids over, trying to get them to come closer. The friend shouted at him, warning that he was going to call the cops, and only then did the man step back into the darkness and disappear. Hearing that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just us, he was really out there, following kids around that night. I remember sitting there, candy forgotten, staring out the window, half expecting to see that same figure standing under the streetlight again. My mom tried to calm me down, saying it was probably just some sick prank, but even she locked every door and closed every curtain before bed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made my heart race. The wind brushing against the windows, the crunch of leaves, it all felt too close, too real. Halloween was never the same after that. Every year since, when I see someone in a mask just standing there not saying a word, that old fear creeps back, because now I can't help but wonder, was that man just trying to scare us? Or was he waiting for the one kid who wouldn't notice until it was too late? I'll never forget that night, walking across that small wooden bridge over Jack Winkle River with my friend Casey, both of us only 11, feeling the crisp Halloween air mixed with excitement and a little nervousness. The moonlight reflected off the water, making everything look calm, almost too calm. We joked and laughed, thinking it was just another fun night of trick-or-treating, but then I noticed something strange. A shadow moving along the edge of the bridge, just out of the corner of my eye. Casey froze next to me, and I could feel my heart pounding like crazy. We both wanted to run, but curiosity and fear held us there for a moment too long. Suddenly, a low, almost whispering laugh echoed from below the bridge, sending chills straight down our spines. I grabbed Casey's hand and we bolted across the rest of the bridge as fast as our legs could carry us, not looking back until we were safely on the other side. That night taught me that Halloween isn't just about costumes and candy. Sometimes the scares are real. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a Halloween moment that made your skin crawl? Drop your story in the comments below, and if you loved this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check out the rest of our videos for more true horror stories that'll keep you up at night. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.